A pleasure to be here with Miss Yajnaseni Chakraborty. Ma'am, welcome to Kolkata Literature Festival. At the outset, let me ask you that your session is very curiously titled For the Record. So, what do you want to place on the record today and what are you anticipating?
Do I? Will you hold on to this? Okay. I am anticipating an extremely interesting conversation with two people who have not really. One of whom has certainly not gone out of fiction before this. This is her first non-fiction work. The other has done non-fiction before. Both have been journalists. So I think their whole career, the majority of their working lives, they have been placing things on the record. And so when it comes to doing something that is non-news, non-journalistic, what do they place on record? That is what I anticipate from today's conversation. That is what I want to find out from them. What are they placing on the record? What are they trying to prove? What are they trying to tell people? When you're a journalist, you have a brief. This is your story. This is what you have to ask. This is what you're going to tell people. Here, there's no brief. So, what are they going to tell people?
Fantastic. Tell me a little bit about journalism and somebody who's worked in the industry for so long. How do you think the industry has handled COVID? Do you think that we're better off in terms of the way people actually value journalists nowadays, given the role they played during the pandemic? Or are there challenges which have actually been compounded since the pandemic?
See, the change had set in before the pandemic, very honestly. The pandemic may have accelerated a few of the changes, but we noticed these trends before the pandemic set in. One was the rise of digital journalism, the digital media, and audiovisual and digital. The consequent death or slow death of print journalism, which is now confirmed, it's official. It's going to happen sooner rather than later. Journalism in COVID times actually adapted very well thanks to the already existing digital format and audiovisual media. Journalism adapted, I think it adapted very well to the circumstances because anyway now, mainstream journalism, as we call it, mainstream media, MSM, is in danger of being replaced by social media. Social media is where actually we source most of our news from, if you look at it like that. So, social media is now actually what I would call mainstream media. Social media during COVID, all of us saw the role that it performed. Today, the war in the Ukraine, I followed all of it on Twitter. Actually, I didn't need to go to any news source. If the president himself is posting on Twitter, then why do I need to go and look at any other news source? So I think journalism as we know it has completely changed or has completely died, whichever way you look at it. What we have now is basically information gathering. And the opinions and comments and all of this, that's left to people because social media has given all of us a voice. I don't need to read somebody else's opinion. I can form my own. And I'm more interested in sharing my own opinion than reading somebody else's opinion. So that journalism no longer exists.
Let's talk a little bit about the work that you're doing with respect to legal edtech now, and just explain what legal edtech is supposed to be and sort of how it empowers the common person and how your journalistic skills have been applicable here.
This is something that I found personally very interesting. This legal edtech or any edtech, the approach now is, or at least the brands that I represent, the approach is to bridge the gap between theory and practice. A lot of our students, a lot of our educational syllabi, our patterns, teaching methods, the general structure of our educational system is geared towards theoretical knowledge. Students are told to read certain books, then sit for certain exams. That's it. You learn by rote, memory, you memorize certain things, and you reproduce. But none of that knowledge actually is geared towards practical use. With the result that even if you ask students, say an MBA student from one of the premier, the institutions that I'm talking about, the best in the country, an MBA, he or she will tell you that when they came out into the real job market, when they joined any kind of corporate entity or whatever it is, they had to unlearn a lot of the things they learned at their institute because theory and practice don't match. Very, very rarely do they match. This edtech, the function of edtech here is the kind that I represent now, is to bridge that gap, to give students practical knowledge, hands on experience about things that say law school won't teach them. Things that you can't learn from a book or from a Google search. And that is very close to my heart. I found that idea very appealing. That yes, I have struggled with this all my life. I know everybody does, all students do. That nobody taught us this in class, in school or college or anywhere else. I paid so many lakhs to earn an MBA degree, but nobody taught me this at management school. So that is the gap that they seek to bridge, and that is where I create content for people who come to study here. The courses. I design courses, or I talk to people about courses. I send out communication. Not talk to. I write. I write communication that talks about why you should adopt a particular, or why you should sign up for a particular course, and why, what advantages this gives you, what you know, what you don't know, all that kind of thing. So I'm talking directly to a target group that cuts across ages, but is actually a student group. It's We have students of all ages, and you'd be surprised at the number of veteran lawyers and senior professionals who join these courses because they don't know what um, they've just worked in a certain way all their lives, and that was what they were taught in whichever institution they went to. And they see the need for more practical knowledge, practical hands on experience. So they come and join us. And that is something that I really, really enjoy. Getting, I'm very action oriented. So I really enjoy teaching people the practical side of things. That's something that I do right now. That is part of, and I also do a lot of freelance for, I've kept on, I've kept in touch with my journalistic side by doing freelance stories for people. But this it's not no longer official formalized media, and that's not something I do anymore.
Finally, tell us a little bit about your translation work, particularly the translations that you've done for detective studies, and how has that experience been like?
I have done two translations thus far, official translations, which have been published. I do a lot of translation work anyway, but these are the two works that have been published. And this one of them is a book of detective real life cases of Kolkata police. The other is also based on real life stories, but they are historical. They are from the freedom movement, stories from the Indian independence movement about Bengal's revolutionaries and their interactions with Kolkata police, Calcutta police as it used to be there, how they engaged, how the police engaged with them. So from that point, both have been written by Supratim Sarkar, who's a senior IPS officer. He wrote in Bengali. I did the two translations. Translations are a very interesting area because it's actually sometimes impossible to translate a lot of things. So you have to transcreate. You have to get the what the writer is trying to say and put it in your own words. Actually, very honestly, they're very, and I prefer that rather than dead, boring translations. It was a very interesting experience, very educative experience. I learned a lot of things. I learned about the workings of the police and how you know, history, crime. These are two of my favorite areas, and this combined both. So I was absolutely, what's not to be happy about? I was delighted to be able to. I hope to continue formal translations, publish more translations very soon. But I'm working on something which I can't talk about now. But yeah, translations I believe are very, very important because not just for the wider reader base, but we have lost. So, say Bengal needs more. Bengal really, really needs to publicize its authors more. I mean, Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay is the most widely translated writer in India. He has, but we haven't. We have so many other writers that we haven't really been able to hold up to the world, or simply because we can't. We haven't translated their works. We have to do that. We have to do that. I believe translations are crucial, a crucial form of literature, which we ignore, which we shouldn't.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a great time at KLF.
Thank you.